Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Broken Responder, episode 10. We have a different form that we're going to do this week for the podcast. Melissa Dubrava from episode 6 with her and her husband. Melissa used to do a podcast, or still does a podcast every now and then. And so we're going to do an Uno reverse this week, and Melissa is going to ask me questions. I've looked over the questions. I'm good with the questions, but we'll see if I don't cry like a little schoolgirl towards the end. So without further ado, Melissa, let's do this.
Yes, so thank you again for letting me do this. I think it's going to be really great to have you tell your side of the story of everything.
Yeah, at least try to do it in maybe a more methodical fashion than kind of what I started to do, but Let's do it and see what we get.
All right, and I do have my questions so that we kind of stay on track, but let's start with one thing first. What got you started with the podcast?
So I realized through my mental health journey that I know of 4 guys in my agency that have been medically retired. And I looked at, I kept in contact with them and talked to them throughout my process. And I realized nobody really talks about the shitty side of this and what really happens. And then I got to thinking, I can't be the only one that has had this happen to me, gone down this. And kind of in that process, I we talk about it later, but I wasn't a very religious person for reasons growing up. And so I decided to put myself out there and tell my side initially of what I went through, how dark it was, how bad it was. Because I figured if I can tell my story, there's gotta be others that have been through this. And so that's why I started doing the podcast. Was one, I want to raise awareness about what we go through, but two, to get other first responders to open up, because the mental health support for us is absolute garbage. So the more voices I can get to tell our stories, hopefully somebody will start to actually pay attention and get us the mental health support we deserve.
Absolutely. No, and I think it's great. And I think it's also with the first responders, it's hard because a lot of times we're told, you don't talk about it. You don't talk about it. You don't let it show. You just keep going on to the next call, the next whatever.
Yes.
And your brain is not meant to do that.
No. And we're going to find out just how crazy my brain is, because there are some days I wake up in a haze. I'm awake, but that's it. That's about as good as I'm going to get some days. Yeah. And then there are some days I'm I'm going to get all this stuff done. And my wife comes home and she's like, what did you do all day? And I was well, I cleaned the house. I went and mowed the yard. I did all these other things. I walked the dogs. It's crazy some days how I'll get up and I'm just kind of here. And then there are some days I have great days, and then there's mediocre days, but people don't get how PTSD really messes with your brain. And it was one of those that I kind of started to have some headache issues, and my doctor sent me in, and I actually did an MRI. And one of the things I also noticed is we don't have a lot of brain research into how PTSD affects the brain, because one of the things that it said on my MRI scan was that there was obvious trauma and swelling in the front of my brain. And then the other thing was the doctor, oh my God, I can't remember the name of the radiologist, was and there's some excess of gray matter floating around in there. And I'm fuck. Yeah. I'm yeah. I was I've taken a few hits to the head, but it was just one of those. I was well, great. This is kind of my new normal. And I have to figure out a way to work through it.
Absolutely. And I think it's also hard when you don't know what your new normal is. When you wake up those days that you don't have that energy, you're is this now my new normal, my new baseline?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And so I've had to, I'm getting to the point now where, February of 26 will be, end of February, will be 1 year completely retired. And so for me, I'm at that point now where I've talked to my wife and I'm I need to set up a routine for myself. Like I'm in bed by no later than 11 o'clock every night. And then my wife gets up at 5:30. I normally sleep in an extra hour. So I'm up at 6:30 to see her for a little bit before she goes to work. And then I'm just left to my own demise for most of the
Yes.
day. And like, there's some
Yes.
days like today I had to go to Walgreens to pick up, well, first off, I had to go take the MILF wagon to go get gas because it was on empty. She drove home and she's like, it's flashing. And I'm like, great. So she's like, I'm going to take my little pickup to work tomorrow. Can you go get gas and pick up my medications? And I'm like, sure. So, I mean, but the nice thing is it gives me something to do to keep me
Yes.
busy from thinking about all the other crazy things. So I got up, I went and I got her gas, and then frickin' Walgreens. That was why don't even get me started on Walgreens. I digress. But I
There's
roll
the
up to
Walgreens lore.
yes, I roll up to Walgreens to go pick up my wife's meds, and this pharmacy has no pharmacist on duty, so you can't pick up any medications. And my wife's like, my wife's like, I need my brain meds. Well, and we can get into that later, but my wife had brain surgery in 2020 to get a tumor removed.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so for me, it was one of those, I was like, I probably should go get these medications. And it just ended up, they weren't open. So I told her, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to go later to go get your medications.
Oh no. Oh,
Yeah.
can you still hear me? It looks like I froze, but can you
Yeah.
still hear me?
I can still hear you. I
Okay.
wonder if it's just maybe the signal lagging or something.
Yeah, our internet's been weird today, but I'm good as long as you can still hear me.
I can still hear you.
That's all right. Well, where did you grow up, and what led you toward a career in law enforcement?
So I grew up in Kearney, Nebraska. It is, and I just kind of funny because I did a TikTok about this the other day. I am 400. Oh, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I was
Okay.
seeing if I restarted the camera, but we're good.
Okay. No, so I grew up in Kearney, Nebraska. I'm like 460 miles from my hometown. I graduated in 1999 from Kearney Senior High School, and I got the hell out of Nebraska as fast as I could. Not that, like, it wasn't terrible. My parents divorced when I was 12, so I stayed in Nebraska with my dad, and my mom and little brother and sister moved to Central Valley in California. They lived in Fresno forever. And I joined the Marine Corps at 17 just to get out of Nebraska to do something different and kind of to piss off my dad. Because my dad wanted me to go to tech school, and I kind of feel stupid because I should have just went to tech school. But I like falling into law enforcement just happened to be like it never was a goal. It never was a plan for me. It was something that just happened. Like I left the Marine Corps, got out after my time, and come home to Nebraska trying to figure things out. And it just so happened I'd seen a posting for the Kearney Police Department there, and I applied and got hired on in early 2003 and worked there for several years. And then I left, kind of got, I don't know, I have a gypsy soul, and I think that's kind of a curse from my father, God rest his soul. But like I can't sit still in one place for a very long time, like in a certain area. We've lived, well, here in Pueblo West I've been here since November of 2012, and this is the longest I've ever been in one location. So I was always kind of, like, oh, this is cool. Like living in San Diego, I loved it. Absolutely loved San Diego because I'm a beach kid. And it just, I stumbled into law enforcement. And then knowing it, when I left my agency in Nebraska, I joined the Navy because I tried to get back into the Marine Corps, couldn't do it because of their manning regulations. So I ended up joining the Navy, going all over the world. And then I actually got pushed out in 2012 when they were doing the force reduction. I was trying to re-enlist, and they're like, your number's up, it's time to go. So I ended up getting pushed out with like 6 years to retire. And have been doing, ended up actually, what was it? there was a my wife is a Pueblo girl born and raised.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so that's how I ended up back in Pueblo, because my wife had a job here with the police department prior to moving to San Diego. She started out as an emergency services dispatcher. We left, went to San Diego for a little bit, and then like we were living in San Diego for a year, and then I got went on my last deployment to Rota, Spain.
Oh wow.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Oh, I've seen photos. I want to go so bad.
Oh, it is absolutely amazing to go to. And we, during that process, I realized that, I knew I wasn't going to reenlist because I couldn't and had to find something else to do. And the police department here had openings for the department, so I applied, but I was on deployment. So I
Oh,
contacted the Civil Service Commission here in Pueblo, and I'm like, hey, I'm halfway around the world on deployment right now. Like, can I pay to FedEx overnight the test to Rota, Spain, and have like my commanding officer or somebody give me the test, and then we will FedEx overnight it back to you? And the city told me to kiss their ass. They're like,
oh,
they're like, no, you have to be here in person. So my wife and I were like, well, we need to make this happen. And so thankfully, my chain of command there was very cool with me doing it. They let me take leave on deployment, and I flew from Rota, Spain, all the way back to Denver. And my wife picked me up, except when this test happened, was the opening day of the Olympics in London.
oh my goodness.
So when I leave Madrid and land in London at Heathrow, it takes like 20 minutes for them to get the gate out to the plane. And
Oh
I'm
my.
already on a time crunch
Yeah.
to get to my continuing flight, but Heathrow is a freaking mess because everybody's coming in for the Olympics. And if I would have realized that, I never would have flown through London Heathrow because I wasn't paying attention. So I get through London. Well, London's a different deal, especially when you're traveling. Because I had to scan my passport into the country, then scan my passport out, and that was a huge line. Then I had to go upstairs and go through basically England's form of TSA to
Oh my
go
goodness.
through that again. Then I had to catch a tram to the terminal I was supposed to be at, and like I barely missed my flight to get here. Because like as I'm like running down the hallway as fast as I can to get to my gate and catch him like last boarding call just as they're about ready to shut the gate. Get home, take the test, have about a week here with my wife and the boys, and then from there, go back to Spain, and then it takes a little bit because the city had like a hiring freeze. So I actually, even though it was end of 2012 when start of 2012 when I took my test and everything else, I didn't get hired till. I didn't start the academy here till February of 2014.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it took a little bit. So in the meantime, like the best I could find, because it's weird here. Pueblo is like its own little, like intricate town. Like it's all about who you know
Oh
to get into like jobs and everything else.
yeah.
Because the best job that I could get at the time was working part time at Lowe's.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I worked part time at Lowe's, like temporary. They ended up hiring me on like as a part time person, and I worked at the paint counter at Lowe's and did that while I was going to school full time here at CSU Pueblo. And then I got hired on with the department, and I couldn't attend school full time because I had to, give everything to them, to the
Yes.
agency. And so I ended up having to take some time off from school, and I ended up with the police department here. And it was a wild ride.
Yes, so I have a few follow-up questions to
Sure.
that. So while you were in the military, were you like was your job there also law enforcement or were you something different in the
So,
military?
no, it's okay. So I ended up in the Navy. My job was a master at arms. So essentially, The world's finest top flight security. So the unit that I was with is basically, so my first unit was in Bahrain. It's a little island off the coast of Saudi Arabia. It's still under a monarchy. It's actually kind of cool because there was a couple times we were out, and when they watch, like move royal family members, like they don't just shut off traffic like you see them in DC and the president has like a route. Like they'll shut down one side of the roadway, but there are like cobra, like attack helicopters and everything, and like miles of Mercedes like just flying by you. And then there's like armed guards everywhere. It's kind of cool watching how they do it. So my first unit there, I was with the Harbor Patrol unit, so we got to protect the warships and everything else when they came in for port visits. Actually saw some cool stuff, was a part of some cool stuff there at the Harbor Patrol unit. We actually had I can't remember the name of the name of the submarine, but there was the USS San Antonio is one of the newest like classes of warships. It's the ones that it looks all weird, but it's basically like the Gator Navy, how they like the back of it drops out, and you can send in the Marines and everything else from there.
Yes,
Well,
those look so cool.
they are pretty cool. But in that one, we actually had God, I can't remember. There was a submarine. So the submarine is like kind of below the USS San Antonio as they're transiting the Straits of Hormuz to come into Bahrain. And the submarine actually comes up and hits the underneath of the brand new warship.
Oh.
Yeah. So we end up going out to pick up this warship, and at the time it was like the furthest they had ever sent a harbor patrol unit out. Like we were, I think, like 60 nautical miles off the coast of Bahrain, and we're in like patrol boats with like 400 rounds, two M60s, and like you can see the Iranian Navy like off in the distance, like they're kind of shadowing and messing with them.
Oh my.
Because there was a short time where we were trying to pick them up, and they were actually getting escorted by like destroyer warships from the U.S. Navy, from the Navy. They were escorting the sub until we picked them up, and it was kind of a cool deal because we had the 3-star Fleet Admiral. For the Fifth Fleet Admiral, the 3-star, in charge of that area, was on my 11-meter rib, and he's like, pull up alongside the sub, I'm getting off. And I was like, all right, sir, whatever you say, you got 3 stars. Yeah. And I've never watched an entire chain of command get sacked so fast, because the COXO and the chief of the boat, the master chief, were all shit canned, like right there on the spot. Oh yeah. Like that's bad news.
Yeah, because they ran into the brand new. I can't imagine how much that cost. Too.
Oh,
expensive.
Oh yeah. Well, and what was crazy is, so you have like the on the top of the submarine, the part that sticks out is what they call the sail, and I think the sail was bent at like it was like 30 degrees. Like it was obvious that they screwed it up, and it screwed up the integrity of the hull, so they couldn't submerge or anything like that. They were in Bahrain for months, and then finally they had to do like a surface transit on a submarine from the Middle East, like back to Virginia. So that was one of the cool things. And then after that, I ended up got transferred to San Diego. And when I originally got there, it was like Maritime Expeditionary Security Group. And then they changed their name a few times. We were like Coastal Riverine Squadron. We were basically, the best way to put it is like we were the old like brown water Navy, like the inner river patrol boats, like the maritime security. So like I never did any law enforcement things. Like all of our stuff was like forced security, securing buildings. We did some cool things. We were part of the ceremony. We retired the sub, the USS Los Angeles in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's so neat.
That was kind of cool because like they had like the Lakers, like
Oh, wow.
Kobe was there, all those guys. It was really cool to be a part of because it was like a big gala event.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, we did one of the cool things I got to do with them. We did a 6 month deployment to Dubai. I mean, oh, terrible. We
Yeah.
literally living in 5-star hotels for 6 months. We had like
Oh,
concierge
wow.
drivers to take us to work. Like, I mean, I was raking in the money when hazardous duty, tax free per diem. I was clearing like 10 plus grand a month just on my
Oh,
regular salary and benefits. So, like, guys were like balling out or they were saving money. Well, you had one dude come back and buy like a brand new Ford Raptor in cash.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, like, and guys were just like, it was crazy to see, and it was a very good experience. It was kind of cool because I mean, like, I spent my whole 5 years in the Navy that I was in, and like never once was on a warship, went underway on a warship. Like we flew everywhere or drove or did all of that stuff. It wasn't anything like I don't know super crazy, but I had like zero law enforcement in the Navy, even though that was what I was supposed to do.
Well, that brings us to our next question because you go from the Navy and then you're at Lowe's for a little bit. Then it is your very first day and you're probably with an FTO. What did that look like?
Oh my God. I still remember my first day on the PD here. I couldn't tell you my first day about the PD there in Kearney at all. Like, nothing really sticks out. But so for us here, and I guess that's another thing, kind of how some of these other agencies work. So when I first got hired on at my agency in Kearney, I did my entire like FTO training and everything else. Like I was on the street making arrests with an FTO before I was even like duly certified in the state of
Oh,
Nebraska.
oh wow.
Because the state in Nebraska, unless you're hired on in like Lincoln or Omaha that have their own like in-house academies because they're that big, everybody else in Nebraska goes to Grand Island where the state actually runs essentially a post academy.
Okay.
So, like, I was already like on the street making arrests, and then like, oh, you have to go get certified too. So I was like, what?
You're
So
like,
then,
wait a second, what?
yeah. So then it was like Uno reverse on that one because I was like already on the street. Then I had to go to the academy. And then when I came back, like I was completely on my own. There wasn't any like real training after that. But here it was kind of cool because we had our in-house academy in Pueblo. And that was its own like animal of an experience because it had been a while since I had been through an academy. So I had to go through an academy all over again. And by that time I was 30 or 31. So it was a different experience to go through it again. Went through it with some great dudes. And we, my first night on the street was absolutely crazy. There is a legend, we'll call him a legend of Pueblo PD, Gil Ladrini. And man, Gil's retired now. But my first night was with him, working the east side of Pueblo, which is like its own crazy monster. But my very first night, very first call, we go to a home invasion.
Oh boy.
Yes. And when we roll up, like you can see in the front of the house, like this dude is holding a revolver, like at this
Oh,
drunk dude that stumbled into the wrong house. And I'm like, what
oh.
the shit is going on? Like, what did I get myself into? And, we're like, time to go. And I'm like, oh shit, I guess here we go.
Yeah.
So we start making our way up to the house, and this guy realizes, like, the cops have the house surrounded. I don't know what this dude was on, but he ended up, like, bailing out the back door, hopping the wooden fence. There was a cop car in the alley along the fence line, and this dude hops the fence, like, leaps onto the top of the patrol car, takes off running, and it's like a 2-block chase before we finally catch this dude, because this dude was just freaky fast.
Yeah.
And catch him in another house, and like that's like my very first call on the street in Pueblo.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and I mean I was like, holy crap. And like the crazy thing was like that was normal. Like the amount of, like, I went from a town that had, it would be crazy to say Kearney, Nebraska would have maybe a homicide once a decade. And coming to Pueblo, where, you know, we're 120,000 people and, you know, you're having anywhere from 15 to 20 homicides a year, like I never experienced anything like that before. I had never had a homicide call. And while I was in our FTO training program, we had like 3 or 4 homicides that summer because I started in February. I think it was end of June or beginning of July when I hit the streets. So we was like prime summertime craziness.
Oh yeah. When the temperatures rise, so do tempers.
Oh yeah. So like working in Pueblo, like my first night was like a clear distinction of what the rest of my career was like here.
Yeah, it was like, hey, I'm just going to show you what you're in for. What
Yeah.
kind, what kind of officer did you set out to be? Like, when you went into law enforcement, did you say, I'm going to change the world, or what was your outlook?
I didn't necessarily know that I didn't ever have the aspect of like trying to change the world. At first, so I guess weird thing is I originally, when I was in Nebraska, I got super good at child abuse stuff. I could tell you within like walking into a house within that first room if I was going to remove the kids or not.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and I don't think, I mean, it's a pretty big responsibility on your shoulders because
Absolutely.
normally, like, you have to have a court order to remove children. In most states, law enforcement can do that, without a court order. They can do it based on judgment. And most of those times when I did it, like, I honestly believed I was doing what was best for the kids. And I enjoyed it. But then you get into some of the other crazy stuff with child abuse, and then you're like, holy shit, this world is sick and disgusting, and I really don't want
Yes.
to do that anymore.
Absolutely.
But when I first got to Pueblo, I really enjoyed just kind of working the street, but initially, I wanted to work traffic. I loved working DUIs. I loved doing traffic crashes. And so I started out my career path going to all the traffic schools. So I went to Colorado has level 1, level 2, and level 3. So level 1
Yes.
is like a, beginning accident investigation where like you do, drag factors and everything else. So kind of, the friction between the tire and the roadway to see if there was friction or not, to see, if the vehicle's actually stopping on the blacktop or concrete, or it's skidding across gravel and still kind of not really scrubbing off much speed, to intermediate investigation, which gets a little more complex with the math. And then into level 3, which is what we consider accident reconstruction.
Yes.
And that is absolutely the hardest 2 weeks of my law enforcement career ever. Because you have like algebra, calculus, physics, and everything else in there. And like one of the things is as you're doing these reconstructions, like they basically hand you like a blank canvas and say, this car, like they have kind of the path of how I would have to, I'd have to pull out like my book, but you have like this ginormous, like 20 by 20 sheet of paper, and it's
Oh,
got
wow.
an accident scene on it, and it's like, here, reconstruct this, because like this car hits this car, but then it goes to this car. And so like you're working these accidents with like 6 cars, and like one car veers off and hits this car, but then it spins, and hits this other car. And you have to essentially reconstruct that entire thing. And if you violate the rules of physics, like you automatically fail.
Oh
Like
wow.
it is a complex class, and it's a great class. But I wanted to stay with traffic. And so I originally got into our traffic section. I did almost 2 years with traffic. And then, I mean, working every night dealing with drunks, like
Yes.
for 10 hours straight, I
Oh.
started, I mean, some of the shit that people will say to you while you're
Oh
doing
yeah.
that, you're ruining my life. I fucking hate you. I hope you die. I'm going to
Yep.
kill myself. What are you going to do when I'm dead in the grave? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to fucking visit you. Why would I do that? Like, I'm not
Exactly.
dumb.
Like, I'm not the one that was drinking and then got behind the wheel. Like, these are
Yes.
the consequences to your actions.
Yes. And people just like, they lose their minds over
Yeah.
it. And so I, I, I started to have some issues because I started to get mean with them.
Yeah.
Instead of like doing what I should have done, I was an asshole to people, and it got so bad. I ended up leaving the traffic section, a little unwillingly. And, there's another reason with that. Part of it was because of my mom and her issues, and we can get into that later. But I ended up leaving the traffic section. And when they, at least for us, when it wasn't my choice, I got to go wherever I wanted to go. Well, I
Oh,
wasn't,
okay.
I wasn't going to stay on overnights, like, because I'm
Yeah.
not a DUI officer anymore. You're just going to use me for DUIs, and screw you. I don't want to do that anymore. So I was like, I'm going to day shift. And,
There you go. I
and
can
they,
actually sleep.
yeah, and they were looking at me like, I don't like, really? He wants to go to day shift? Which day shift to me was a blessing in disguise. Cause I got to work with some of the older guys that I would talk shit to every morning. And I learned so much from those guys. I learned like how to deal with people better, how to talk with people better. Like not to be the exact opposite of what I was in getting, removed from the traffic section.
Yeah.
So working with those old guys was great. And then by the time the next shift bid came around, because we bid our shifts every year, I had enough seniority to bid day shift. And then the rest of my career after that, I spent on day shift for 6 years ish, somewhere in there. 6 years. But it was a great experience working on day shift, and day shift was a totally different monster. Like it's just kind of like night, except there's daylight, and like people wave at you with all 5 fingers.
Yes, yes. Day shift and nights are so you don't realize the differences, but you have the similarities where the people that are coming off of their night roll into your day shift, and you're like, "How are you drunk at 7 a.m.? Like, why
Yes.
are you fighting people? Like, what?" But yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Next question or whatever you got for follow up.
So, when you look back at your entire time in a uniform, what is something that you're most proud of?
Man.
I know I'm hitting you with the hard questions.
Yeah. I would have to say part of it that kind of has helped humble me a little bit was actually having conversations with folks that I would arrest. Because for the longest time, I mean, and don't get me wrong, there still are, but you look at the drunks, the druggies, and you're like, this dude's a fucking shithead. Like,
Yeah.
you're just, why are you doing this? Like, you're stupid. You can just quit. And it wasn't until I started to realize trauma and what it does to folks, and then kind of put pieces together with stuff in my life, and my mother being an alcoholic, and that killing her, my brother struggling with alcoholism, my sister struggling with narcotics, that trauma leads to a lot of that stuff. So I got to the point where, like you're arresting these people on, some of these folks, and there's, drug addictions and everything else. I would have conversations with them. We'd start off, you run in their mouth like they normally do.
Yeah.
And I would be like, what happened to you?
Yeah.
And that was one of the craziest questions that I would ever ask, because I would learn about people's like life stories, like people that had everything and got into a car wreck and were overprescribed, Percocets and Oxys, and then all of a sudden one day, like, ripped them away cold turkey, and now all of a sudden they're a heroin junkie, because they're trying to, help alleviate the pain. And most of those folks, I would say, if I came across them later, and just by having those conversations and actually giving a shit about them, or somebody asking them about what their experience was, I found that it served me a lot better, because when stuff went down, the folks that knew that I had talked to them like a human being would come up to me later, or they would, hey Burns, I've got your cell phone number. And they would call and leave me a message and be like, hey, you need to look into this person, or you need to look into this, because they would cooperate. And so for me, that was one of those deals like, damn, if I actually treat people like people, you get better results. So for me, like, that was one of the lessons that, I don't know, like, I kind of learned, and it stuck with me, that just treating people like people and taking just those few extra minutes to find out like what's going on with them will like pay off tremendously.
Absolutely. And do you think, I know when we had talked previously about like vicarious trauma and different things, do you think that when you asked those questions to the people, like, were you able to kind of like almost empathize with them that, wow, you went through a really shitty situation, and like, yes, you're in the back of my squad right now because you did break the law, but like, you kind of get it after a while, like, does that make sense?
Yeah, so I would, like, if they weren't, like, even if they had warrants or had done something dumb, like, if they weren't, like, terrible, or they cooperated or did anything, like, I told them, I was like, if you help me out, like, I will absolutely document what you've done to help yourself out in my police report, to hopefully, like, let the DAs know that, like, hey, you screwed up, but you weren't a complete jackass to me. So I will do what I can to help you out. Or, I've had folks, and one of the dudes, I feel bad for him. He got killed here not too long ago. Dude was a great dude. I had arrested him multiple times on driving charges, like with suspended license, or like no insurance. Like one night I towed his car because he didn't have registration insurance and his license was suspended. And, and like, I've had this dude cut my hair before, because he works at a barber shop. His aunt still cuts my hair. I still love her to death. And that's who I go see for my barber. But it was one of those things that, like, even after he got arrested, like, he would still talk to me. He would still be nice. I would still trust him to cut my hair, and do, like, the straight razor deal on me. But it was just one of those things that, like, if you were decent with people, 9 times out of 10, they would be decent back with you.
Absolutely.
And so I kind of got out of that, gung-ho mindset, and I was like, man, if I just treat people like people, I bet I get further in this career. And so that was what I tried to do, was just be nice to people and treat people kind of how I would want to be treated if I was in their shoes.
Absolutely. And I think it's sometimes hard too when they're mother effing you up and down and you're just like, can we just have a conversation like civilized adults? Like,
Yeah, and I think, and some of those you kind of have to let people vent a little bit.
yes.
Because like with our call volume, man, there are some times like, I'm sorry you had to wait 2 hours. Like, I would get to the door and like you would see it, and that like I would try and cut them off, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry it took us so long to get here. The city's been out of control.
Yeah.
What can I do to help you? Or
Yes.
what did you call us for? What can I do? And try to like start that and apologize first on their frustration. And once I did that, it let a lot of that stuff go. But even when some
Yes.
people did complain, I would be like, dude, I get it. I'm so sorry. Like, I wish I
Yeah.
could solve this problem right now for you, but I can't. Let's like work on whatever the reason you called us. What can I do to solve that?
Yeah, absolutely. What's something about you that most people would not expect when they hear retired law enforcement?
I normally initially don't tell people that I'm retired law enforcement.
Okay.
I normally just tell people, they're like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm retired.
Yeah.
And kind of let them either think their own thoughts, like I'm some hedge fund manager or something. But let's face it, like I'm not that great. No, so normally when they'll be like, "Oh, what did you do?" I'll be like, "Well, I worked for the police department here in Pueblo,
Hmm.
and I had a couple incidents, and it kind of broke me mentally, and I'm retired." And
Yeah.
they kind of look at you like, "Oh," and they're like, some of the folks. We came across, actually, a buddy and I were golfing a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was last month, I think. It was whenever it was they had the ceremony in Springs for the fallen firefighters.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my buddy and I were actually golfing at 4 Mile Golf Course in Canyon City. And, here I am crazy because I'm wearing like, what was it? I wasn't wearing my weed polo that day. I have like a weed golf polo. And normally I wear like a weird polo whenever we go golfing, and these guys were in front of us. It was a threesome, and one of the guys was wearing an IAFF shirt, and I was like, "Oh, you're a firefighter? Where you at, man?" And he's like, "How do you know I'm a firefighter?" I was like, "Your IAFF logo on your shirt." I was like, "We have IAFF Local 3 in Pueblo, and I'm retired from IBPO 537." And he's like, "We're from Prince George's County, Maryland, and we're in town because we have like three firefighters that their names are getting put on the wall in Springs." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry you guys are here for that." Like, it kind of gave me a little break to, say, "Hey, look, I'm retired from being a first responder." And kind of throw out the podcast a little bit, and what I'm trying to do. And it's been a great experience for the most part. I haven't had anybody like trash talk or shit talk or anything else. I think most people realize, like, if you get retired out of this, you probably went through some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And we've kind of already talked about this. So you've lived both sides, the uniform and the civilian. And you just talked about like who you are when you introduce yourself. Are there things that happen, and I'm sure I know the answer to this, but in case the viewers don't, are
Sure.
there things that happen in your career that will stay with you as a civilian? Like whether that's, where you sit in a restaurant or, kind of scanning rooms and different things, or, if your kiddo comes and says a certain name and you're like, you're staying away from them. I know that name.
Yeah, thankfully our boys are adults now, so I don't
Oh,
have to
okay.
worry too much about that. But to get into it, it was a funny thing with our boys. Our oldest was our wild child. Our youngest was not the wild child.
Oh,
They didn't do really much partying. Our youngest was like, I'm a blonde haired, blue eyed kid. And everybody knows me for the most part. Like when I worked on night shift, all the kids, all the guys knew who my boys were.
oh yeah.
And my youngest was like, they're going to spot me at a house party. And our youngest was like, I would rather go to jail than like have you call
You
my
call my
mom.
parents?
Yes.
I did the same thing.
Yes. So, like, they didn't do anything crazy. I mean, well, they did do crazy stuff. And my wife and I learned about all of the stupid shit that they did now that they're adults because they tell us, like, without recourse.
Yep.
It's so, like, I learned that the boys decided one day, like, so we were on a family vacation, and I know I'm getting off topic. We were on a family
You're fine.
vacation and ended up in New York City, like down in New York City. We weren't
Oh,
like Manhattan or somewhere. We ended up staying the night there, and our two jackasses decided after we fell asleep that they were going to go out and fucking explore New York all on their own.
Oh
And
no.
thank God the oldest was like, well, let's go another block, and the youngest is like, well, let's go back to the hotel. I think they got like
Yeah.
2 or 3 blocks from the hotel before they finally realized we
Oh wow.
probably shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I learned about that just like what, a year or two ago, and I'm like, are
Oh
you
no.
freaking kidding me? Like you two. So there was that experience, and I've lost the question in my head now.
Oh no, you're fine. It was just, is there anything that stayed with you from being in law enforcement that you keep every day? And I mean, that definitely is one where your kiddos are like, we can't tell mom and dad that we're gonna go explore it after
Yeah,
midnight. But
I mean,
just different things.
there are like my two specific incidents that I went through that medically retired me. Those stick with me all the time, and there
Excellent.
is one specific incident that uh like literally sticks with me, and I'm gonna hopefully I don't cry. Um,
And it's okay if you do.
it is
You
okay.
know? Yeah.
We had it was a suspicious death call, and it ended up this poor little girl, she was like less than 10 years old, and she had passed away. And when you looked at this poor little girl, you would think that she just got the shit kicked out of her nonstop by
Oh
her
my.
parents. I mean, she was bruised from head to toe. uh and my assignment was to sit there and protect the body in her room. And I mean, so this poor little girl's under a sheet,
Mhm.
and all I can do is sit there and apologize to her that we couldn't do anything to save her. And I felt so like angry and helpless at that moment.
Absolutely.
And thankfully, after we got through, started the investigation and everything, you learn that the parents were doing everything they could for this poor little girl. She ended up having like some super rare genetic disorder that like not
Oh.
hardly many kids get. And mom and dad were taking her like to Children's Hospital in Springs in Denver like multiple times a week for appointments. But basically, like this poor little girl's body was like eating her from the inside out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So like if like she walked by and like ran into you or like brushed against you, like she would automatically have a bruise. Kind of like you well, my wife has low iron. So like if she
Mhm.
like hits the corner of the dresser, you're like, "Oh,
Yes.
that's going to bruise."
Yep.
Um
Black,
but
purple bruises. Yep.
yes, but this poor little girl had this rare genetic disorder, and no matter how many times like I try to, even though like I know that there was like everything that was being done, like that sticks with me, is that little girl under a sheet.
Absolutely.
And I was talking to like my buddy that Marty, that him and I went golfing the other day in Canyon City, and one of the things we were talking, like him that sticks with him, is a suicide that we worked together. Is this 18-year-old kid who for some odd reason he was like born in New Jersey, and where he was born in New Jersey they only issued like city birth certificates, they didn't issue state
Oh.
birth certificates. And this kid was trying to leave for the army, and he kept getting rejected because he needed a New Jersey birth certificate instead of a city one. And he put his head down on the railroad tracks and a train hit him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that was a fiasco. And I, like, to this day, like, we went to the house. We finally, going through reverse 911 calls, trying to get the carrier, trying to get the name of the owner, all the other resources we have at our fingertips to try and find out who this kid is.
Yeah.
We end up finally finding the house where he lives, and we knock on the door. It's me, the coroner investigator, and my buddy and his rookie trainee. And we get in talk to the dad, and we're like, hey, do you have a son about this age? And he's like, oh, he's down in his room. And we're like, well, can you go check? And the dad runs downstairs and he comes back up and he's like, my son's gone. And we're like, fuck, we have the right house. Yeah. So we end up going into the kitchen, and as the coroner investigator's talking to this dad, I am like running around the kitchen, like slowly, like hiding kitchen knives and other sharp things, because I'm expecting this to go sideways in a like split second.
Absolutely.
And the thing that sticks with my buddy and we were talking about was his note that he left. And in his note, it said, take care of my dog. And that was it. That was all he had. And like him and that suicide note just sticks with my buddy. Like that's the one thing that like screws with him his entire career is just that note of take care of my dog. And I don't think people like understand or comprehend the stuff that like we see, hear, smell, and experience, because like it just sticks with you forever.
Yeah. I had the call that we had discussed previously with the suicide. The thing that sticks with me is it was a plaid shirt. And my husband loves to wear plaid shirts. And I'm like, every time I see it, I'm like, oh, and I've done so much therapy, but man, that will always, and now that we're kind of here, we're going to talk about some of the harder questions that I have, if you're good with that.
Yeah, I'm good. Let's go.
All right. So you had talked about two incidents that you were in. And so what do people never understand about what happens after you pull that trigger?
Oh, well, I like the one thing, like people don't understand like the emotions that come with it. My first one was a suicide by cop. Wow. And like in that moment, you are just doing everything you can and you're trying to remember your training, you're trying to remember policies, procedures, state laws. Like there are so many complex things going on in your mind that people just don't comprehend. And they don't understand, first off, like during those incidents, how your body changes. So like my first incident was 63 seconds from start to when shots were fired. In 63 seconds seemed like a freaking eternity. Yeah. Like it seemed like hours had passed. And it, after it was all done and over with and you kind of comprehending and all of the information is like coming through to your head, like I immediately started to get sick to my stomach because I was like, oh my God, like I know what this is. I know what that was. So like I immediately felt sick to my stomach. My partner, who is still doing the job, was on the first week of his own, like he had completed the training program and first actual week on the street by himself with nobody else. Oh boy. And after it, he turned, like he's a, light-skinned Hispanic kid and he turned almost see-through. And he didn't talk to anybody for like 45 minutes. So like people, like it's definitely not glorified. Oh my God, it's the worst experience you could ever go through. Because after that, then, you have, the whole deal of, people coming to see you like you get taken to the station, they dock your body cam right away so they can start downloading the video to watch what happened. Then you have people coming in to check on you, and then we got taken down to our CSI lab, and you basically get processed like a criminal would. I mean, you get photos from head to toe, 360 degrees. They hit you with or they don't hit you, but they, use the, I can't remember the name of the terminology, but it's basically like the infrared, or not the UV light, basically they do that to make sure you don't have anything on you or your uniform or anything else. Cause if you do, they take that from you. And so, they go through, they download the weapons that you had, that stuff. They do round counts, all that other stuff. And then basically they're like, you're on admin leave. And it's, they tell you, hey, the department shrink's going to reach out to you, in the next few hours. Go home, try to relax. And like that first one, I got to my locker. After that, I sat down, I opened up my locker, and I just sat on the bench across from my locker and cried. And no idea or reason why. It just is like that overwhelming, like, just bawled like a baby.
Yeah.
And then changed, went home, and that was my wife didn't know how to deal with it because like we hadn't gone through with it or hadn't gone through it, never wanted to go through it.
Yeah.
And she just kind of let me be. I sat on the couch and watched TV, fired up the Xbox, and just did anything mind-numbing to not have to think about what I had just experienced.
Absolutely.
And then the psychologist psychiatrist, the department shrink, texts and is like, hey, don't drink alcohol, don't make any crazy decisions, don't do anything dumb. And, we'll talk in a few days, whatever, after you've had your, actual, interview. So for those that like different states, Colorado doesn't, in Nebraska, they essentially, immediately, like within a couple weeks, do like a grand jury
Oh,
where
wow.
you basically bring in all the information and they do like a grand jury to see whether they are or aren't going to charge you for this. Well, Colorado's a little bit different, and maybe Pueblo's also a little bit different, because we went through, what was it? I was off for like a day or two, and then it was like on a Sunday, I got called by our union lawyer, because we're a union department, and he's like, hey, we need to sit down, we need to go over your in-car camera footage, your body cam footage, all this stuff, and we need to review it because you have your official like clearance interview Monday morning. So we sit down and like that just rips everything open again because you're back in that moment. And you're explaining everything of what happened, why you did it, all this other stuff. And then you get to the actual interview. And for me, it was myself, my union lawyer, our union president on one side of the table with me. And then on the other side, it was two detectives from the Pueblo County Sheriff's Office. And so, like, when a huge incident like this happens, like, your agency can investigate it. So, for us, like, the critical incident team is, like, Colorado State Patrol, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the Pueblo County Sheriff's Office, that one of these agencies is going to take the lead and investigate the incident.
Yes.
They ran the deal, and it's kind of mind-numbing at first because, they ask you, like, what you figured dumb questions, but it's not. It's,
Yeah.
what were you wearing that day? And I'm like, I was wearing my uniform. Well, what
Yeah.
does your uniform have? Do you have like a badge and a nameplate? Does it have patches with your department on it? And I was like, yeah, it has all of that. Were you driving a marked patrol car? How do you know it's a marked patrol car? And I'm like, well, it's got big logos. It says fucking Pueblo Police Department on it and a light bar
Yeah.
and it does the wee woo. And I
Yes.
feel like it's those stupid questions, but it's like things that they have to establish to show that like you were on duty, like all this
Yes.
other stuff. And then you get into the nitty gritty of like blow by blow explaining what happened.
Yeah.
And that is, like, once I actually got into therapy, like, that is more mind draining than therapy. Because I think my first interview lasted about 2 hours.
Oh my.
Yeah, well, and they're long because there's so much
Yes.
information that they go over. But like after that 2 hours, like I was like mentally exhausted. Like
Oh,
I,
I'm sure.
I was just done. So you have that interview and then, you go through the process, of, then like a couple of days later, I had to go see the department shrink, up in Colorado Springs. And at first I struggled with sleep issues. Like that very first night, I vividly relived my incident over and over and over. Like I was right back in it again.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Getting the sweats and heart race, all
oh
that.
my God, yes. And like I would wake up and I'd be like, you know, oh my God, like this isn't happening. And then you drift off back to sleep and you're right back in it over again.
Yep.
So initially, my first one, I was kind of having some sleep issues. So I talked to the department shrink. Like they gave me some stuff to help me sleep, which kind of did, but didn't really help any of the dream deals.
Yep.
I talked to the department shrink, but I still to this day am not a fan of the department shrink that I had to talk to because that doctor's listening skills were freaking terrible.
Yes.
Because every time you would say something, she's like, "Oh, how did that make you feel?" And I'm like, "Shut the, just let me
Yes.
talk." Just God, you like, how did you get a doctorate degree?
Absolutely.
And so
And
we
oh, go
go,
ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Well, and you also think like because they're with the department, are they then taking that back to your department? Like, is that then going to your boss, or is that
Yeah,
like
so and that's well, it's and well the agency that we used. I'm not going to give their name out because I don't want to.
absolutely?
But yeah, like the department pays them for, like these clearance, basically return to work interviews.
Yes.
And this doctor was so annoying, and I was so annoyed with the whole process that I just said whatever I had to say to get out of that office. I'm fine. I'll be okay. I'm, not mad. I'm not upset. I'm not irritated.
Yes.
I just want to go back to work. And so that happened. I got cleared and I went back to work. And months roll by. So my first one was in November of 2022, and I did not get cleared from that until 9 months after the fact. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And were you
Uh,
on admin leave that whole time?
Hell no. No,
Oh.
not even close. I was off work for maybe 2 weeks, and then I was right back at work on the
Oh, okay.
back at the on the street answering calls, doing all of that stuff. Could have had another incident and still been in the same shoes again.
Okay.
So it wasn't until July, end of July of 2023, I get called by the chief secretary, like come up to the chief's office. And that's like a whole nerve wracking deal in its own. Cause I'm like, fuck, what did I do lately? Like, have I said
Exactly.
something? Like, am I
Is this a
about,
complaint
yeah,
or
is this a complaint or like I'm going up to get some like IA referral, like what is
yeah.
going on? So I walk up to the chief's office, sit down and, he said something to me that still just pisses me off to this day. And he hands me this huge packet of paper and he's like, well, too bad we couldn't charge you. And I was like,
What?
what? He's like, I'm just joking with you. He's like, you're one of the only guys I could joke with down, like that around here. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a fucking smartass. I will joke and do some of the absolute dumbest things, but there was like wrong place, wrong time. And it was definitely
Yeah.
wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, I would have been like, what? Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's not,
it,
yeah.
it was irritating. Anyway, so he hands me this like giant 25-page packet, and it's basically it's my clearance letter is what we call it, and it's basically like it details the entire incident from start to finish, from their investigatory deal of it's gone through all the I's, all the big wigs, all the way to the district attorney here in Pueblo. And basically, in the end, it says that based on the investigation, there's not going to be any charges, that it was reasonable and justified, and that I'm cleared, and that this incident is basically considered done and over with. But you still have that like in the back of your mind, like holy crap, like I still went through this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then November of 2023 happens, which was my second incident, and that one was absolutely insane. Uh, like yeah, I'm not into a lot of details, but dude was gonna try and run my partner over.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't let that happen. But in
Yeah.
that, what's crazy in that second one is that from start to finish, it was like 10 seconds from
Oh
Like the
wow.
time when I got there to the time it happened, and those 10 seconds, like snap of a finger.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't understand is your body kind of goes into a self protection mode because you're
Absolutely.
not wearing earmuffs or earplugs or anything. And so your body like automatically shuts your hearing down. So, like, gunshots sound like puffs. Like,
Okay.
you know what's going on, you know what's happening, but all you hear is like a puff, puff. Like it's nothing loud.
Yeah.
And then after it's over, like you automatically have your hearing back again. And then that second one, my wife at the time had gone. She wasn't working for our agency anymore. She'd gone to another part of the city, and is on a Saturday. And after everything got done and over with that one, and I could go back to my car, I walked back and I grabbed my cell phone and I called my wife and I said, "Babe, you're not gonna."
Yeah.
I said, "Babe, you're not gonna believe this. I just had a fucking second one," and she was like, "Are you fucking shitting me?" And I'm like, "No, I am not." Like, so that was a whole other process
Absolutely.
going through that, and then same process all over again of the shrink and the interviews. But this one, the second one, I knew I wasn't ready to go back to work after that one.
Yeah.
So I did a workman's comp claim. Actually, I waited a little bit on that one. We had gone to, it was like the way they had changed the process, so you no longer had like a week off. Now they kind of changed it, I think, to what Denver does. So I had like 2 weeks in our training division, and then you're supposed to do 2 weeks with a specialized unit
Yeah.
of your choice, and then you do like 2 weeks of riding with a partner, like another officer. Well, during my 2 weeks of working in our in-house academy, shortly after, like right after my 2 weeks, we had already had regular scheduled vacation. So my wife and I went to Florida to go see our youngest son and our daughter-in-law, spent Christmas and New Year's down there. And I knew I wasn't ready to go back, so I scheduled a surgery that I had been putting off for a while. I needed to get tennis elbow fixed in my left arm and carpal tunnel. So I was like, I'm going to have both of those surgeries done, give me some more light duty time, kind of chill out at the station.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And
Hear me again?
yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, some scammer keeps calling, but they did the thing where they could bypass my do not disturb. So,
Oh no.
all right, we're good. Sorry about that.
No, you're
Um,
okay. So I had my surgeries, and it was I ended up working up in our property section for our property crimes, helping those folks out, and I had started to struggle with depression kind of during that. Like I started to go to a dark place, and it wasn't like me just trying to go there, like it was just happening.
yeah, your brain was
Yeah,
going whether you wanted to be on board.
yeah. Like I started to, post a lot of dark things on social media. I was kind of struggling with that. And I would go through like bouts of depression that would sometimes it would kind of started off being a day or two, and then it would go to a week, and then it would go to 2 weeks. And then finally, our youngest son came home for his 21st birthday in April, and I'm still off on light duty, and it got so bad. God bless my wife for like being kind of stubborn like she needed to be, but she did her best to support me through the depression, and she finally looked at me and she's like, "I don't know what to do for you. I can't help you. You need to go get some fucking help." And I was like, "Oh." So I was like, "Well, maybe I'll start therapy."
Yeah.
So I called and I talked to the doctor that runs our peer support program, because I was on the peer support team. And I was like, I'm kind of struggling. I need to talk to somebody. Who do I talk to? And she gave me a recommendation for my therapist, Liz Viamarin, up in Colorado Springs. And I called, and I think with the way schedules worked, it took like a week or two to get in to see her. And I called Workman's Comp, and I said, hey, this is kind of in regards to my first incident, plus I had a second one. And they reopened the Workman's comp claim, and they were like, go start doing therapy. So it took a very long time for me in therapy because I never knew emotional intelligence. I struggled with that because I grew up with a dad that, he was a Vietnam vet. Grandpa was a World War II vet. You don't show emotions. You don't let people see you cry. You don't do any of that stuff. So when I explained things in therapy for the longest time, it was very concise and matter of fact. It wasn't how I felt because I didn't know how to feel.
Yeah.
So that was a process, learning how to feel, and God bless it, because once I figured out how to feel, that was like the shittiest feeling ever.
It is, because you go through every single like hard moment that you've ever had in your life, and you're like, I have to feel all of this now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot.
It was rough. And so we started, kind of doing some therapy. But I was just in the baby steps, learning how to like deal with things, learning how to open up, and still struggling with that. And then, I, got cleared to go back to the street from light duty, and first day on the street, first call, we go to recover a stolen pickup. And we go up there, a bunch of us, not necessarily blocking this pickup in, throw down spike strips, all that other stuff to take out the tires. And dude starts to wake up as they're getting ready to yank him out, and he starts reaching for a rifle that he had in the front seat. And after that, like, that was it. I was done. Like, everything would send me into like an anxiety attack. Like, my blood pressure, like my Apple Watch is like going off, like, you need to calm down. And no matter what I did, I just couldn't get myself under control. And I knew something was wrong. So I went and I talked to my captain, and I said, hey, this is what I have going on, and I don't know how to deal with it, and I need to get some help. So I had to fill out another workman's comp claim, basically to start the whole process again. And it was one of those that he said something to me that still sticks with me, and still kind of, it's true and it stings. Because he looked at me and he's like, Richard, he's like, you're like Robin Williams. And I was like, oh dear God. He's like, you're laughing on the outside, making everybody laugh, having a good time, but you're dying on the inside. And man, I had never felt so accurately judged by another human being than I did in that moment. So I end up going into workman's comp, and I forgot about that first workman's comp experience. So my first one, workman's comp experience on my first incident, I put on the paperwork that I needed mental health help due to an officer involved shooting. And I handed the paperwork over to the clerk, or the receptionist at the workman's comp deal. Mind you, like, the room is packed because it's 8:00. They've just opened up. You have, CDOT workers, truckers, having to come in to do their urinalysis or get their DOT physical again. There's all these other folks that it's not a first responder friendly place,
No, it's not. Yeah.
And she looks at my paperwork and she's like, oh my God, you were in a shooting? Did you kill somebody? When did this happen?
Oh.
Yeah. And I, like, my little red guy inside of my head is like, I'm going to grab this bitch by her hair, yank her over the counter, and proceed to just smashing her right now.
Like, why would you think that that's an appropriate thing to announce to this entire room? And why even say that?
Yes. So... for the first time ever in my life, I was like, oh my God, this is what it's like when HIPAA gets violated.
Yeah.
And then I had to sit in like a corner and I was like the last one called. So like everybody else knows while I'm there.
Yeah.
Nobody really says anything to me, but you could feel like everybody just looking at you.
Absolutely.
So
Probably
I,
Googling too,
yes,
trying to find. Yeah.
yeah, so that happened on my first one. And so my second one, when I go back and, do that stuff, I'm sitting there and, by this time, I'm really struggling because, like I have my own internal monologue telling me that it would be better if we didn't wake up tomorrow. If I didn't wake up tomorrow, all of these problems would be gone. I wouldn't be stressed. My family would be doing so much better. There's a lot of things that like your mind will play games with you. And I really struggled with it. So, when I get into workman's comp, I'm telling, the doctor about, what's going on, everything else, to the point where they're like, we're going to M1 you. And I was like, no, the fuck you're not. I was like,
Oh,
you're not. And for those that don't know what an M1 is in Colorado, it's a mental health hold, kind of like a 5150 in California or anything else. And I was like, look, first off, I don't have a plan. Second off, I really don't want to kill myself. I'm just telling you, these are the things that are going on inside my mind, and I am struggling with it.
yeah. Please help me.
Yeah,
That's what
please
I'm
help
telling
me.
you.
So they're like, well, you were going to go get a mental health eval. And I was like, not in Pueblo, I'm not. First off, because I know all the schmucks at the hospitals. And I've seen what they've done to people that are 10 times freaking crazier than I am. Like, they kick them out the door in less than 30 minutes. So why am I going to waste my time doing that? And so finally I said, look, I will go take myself to go get a mental health eval, but I'm not going to do it here. So I called the doctor from the peer support program again, and she set up something for me in Colorado Springs. I ended up showing up to the hospital, to the ER there, drove myself there, park in the parking lot, go inside. I give them my name, and just like she said, it wasn't, 5 minutes. They came out and they got me. I had to go do a urinalysis, because, evidently that happens. It's part of it. I do a breathalyzer, but they can't get the breathalyzer machine to work. They can't figure it out. It's, PBT. And I'm like, here, can I do it? Cause I know how to do it. I was like, I'll hold it. I'm not doing anything. Like, you guys can watch me do this.
Yeah.
So I blow all zeros, and then they're like, you need to take all your clothes off and put this on. And I'm like, seriously? Like, you're giving me the turtle suit?
Yeah.
And anybody that, like, if you work for a jail or hospital, you'll know what the turtle suit is, the little green scrubs and everything else that indicate you're like a mental health hold.
Yeah. You can't hurt yourself in them.
Yeah, except I'm kind of a bigger dude, so they didn't have a top, like, big enough for me. So, like, I've got the green pants on, but I've got the, like, regular green scrub top on, or like the backless gown. It's just green. And I'm sitting in there, so they take all my stuff away. So I don't have my car keys. I don't have any of that other stuff, but I've got my cell phone, and I've got a book that I brought in, because I'm like, who knows how long this is going to last.
Yeah. Gotta stay entertained.
Yeah, so like I let my wife know where I'm at, and I'm texting one of my buddies who is like one of my core group of friends, when, like I've talked about in kind of the podcast, my core four, of, Marty, Wags, Logan, and Billy. I was talking to Wags that day. Wags was just raking me over the coals, and thank God, it was the right kind of medicine that I needed at that time that I didn't know, because him shit talking to me, made me laugh and kind of like not focus on like where I was at that time.
Yeah.
So, we go through that process. They ask you a million different ways if, like, you want to die or commit suicide. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. Like, this is what I'm struggling with. And at that time, I was doing everything I could to not sleep, because every time I slept, I would be right back in it over again. But this time, I had both of the incidents that I was reliving, not just one, it was both of them. So there was a period of time that I would not sleep for 2 to 4 days, basically. And I'm drinking energy drinks and doing all this stupid stuff to keep myself awake because the moment I sleep, I'm back in it.
Yeah.
And so I end up, oh God, what was it? The one morning, I woke up and it was the absolute worst pain that I had ever been in my life, to the point where I looked at my wife and I said, "We need to go to the ER." And she's
Oh no.
like she didn't even ask. She just got up and started getting dressed and she's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "I don't know, but I have the most ungod awful pain in my back and it's killing me." Well, ended
Oh
up
no.
being kidney stones.
Oh. Yeah.
Because energy drinks will do that to you. And after drinking
Yes.
so many of them for so long and days straight, trying not to sleep, it got to me. And now I don't do energy drinks at all.
Yes.
But like it was miserable, because of like not wanting to have to experience that stuff. And therapy was great, but therapy wasn't helping me sleep.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, you need to get in to see a work comp like psychiatrist to get meds. Well, and that was one of the things that, excuse me, initially workman's comp sent me to the ER was to get medication. And the ER doc was like, "I'm not going to see you repeatedly in here. This is just like a one-time thing. Workman's comp should have prescribed, drugs for you. That's what
Yeah.
they're there for." Well, nobody at Workman's Comp would prescribe anything to help me sleep or any of that other stuff. So I am like raw dogging like life and all of this like terrible thoughts in my head and my own
Yeah.
internal monologue. And then from there, we they get the referral put in. Well, the first referral they put in for a workman's comp psychologist or psychiatrist is the same dude they referred me to the year prior that
Oh no.
never called me back. So they're like, "Here, talk to this psychologist." So I called the office, left a message, never heard anything. Well, then I've had my second incident. And then they're like, "Well, we call this doctor." And I said, "I called him in November of 22 and I still haven't heard anything back." And this is like May of 23 now.
Yeah.
So
Plenty of time for him to
yeah,
have called me.
plenty of time. And they're like, "Well, maybe he retired and we just don't know." They're like, "Well, try
Oh my
this other
goodness.
doctor." So I call this other doctor and I can't get in for like, it was like 2.5 months before he could get me in for an appointment.
Oh no.
So I'm still raw dogging this with no medication, no nothing. Like
Oh
it's
my
just the
gosh.
worst time of my life.
Yeah.
And we get to, what was it, June-ish? I think it was end of June of 2023. My my wife's at work. I'm at home because I'm not working. I'm off on injury leave. I'm not seeing anybody. As far as, I mean, other than the therapist, once to twice a week.
Yeah.
I have no medication. Trying to deal with all of this craziness, and I have said, "Fuck it, I'm done." I had a whole plan on what I was going to do, and I made a video explaining to my wife and boys why they were going to be better off without me. Not to hopefully be too mad at me for what I was about to do. And my wife came home early. And
Like an angel.
yeah, it, like I said, I am not a big religious fan.
Yeah.
Because of what I grew up with. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. I'm not a big fan on organized
Oh.
religion. But, I mean, and that was only until like my parents divorced and then we were never in that religion anymore.
Yeah.
But my mom grew up in it, and I just kind of turned my back on religion. And had it not been for that moment, I truly believe there was divine intervention, because had my wife not have come home, like, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
But she came home, and it was one of those things. She came home and I didn't hear her come home. And I was downstairs in our basement getting ready to do something, getting ready to leave the house when she walked in and she's like, something's not right today. And I was like, what do you mean?
Oh my goodness.
She's like, I don't know what's going on. She's like, you aren't responding appropriately. She's like, you aren't normal. You don't seem normal-ish, like what we're going through right now. And she literally would not leave me alone that day. She came home early. She took off, work, came home, and literally sat with me the whole day, and kept an eye on me. And I never told her about what I had done. The first time she had learned about how bad it was, I think was in maybe my second episode of the podcast when I was talking about like where I was really at.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that she ever truly found out how bad it was.
And what did she say like when she like, when she heard it?
I think she's still kind of devastated and shocked that, I didn't talk to her about it. I mean, I think it was one of those that it was kind of an eye opener for her on just how bad like my mental health was at that time. And I think one of the things that like going through that and the talks that we've had since then, and we'll get into that probably later with some of the questions, was
Yes.
I didn't want to feel like I was bothering her. And it's stupid to say that because, like she's the one person I'm supposed to rely on all the time. And I just don't know that. I don't know why I did it, honestly. It was one of those like stupid, selfish things that I did that I don't know, it was a struggle. But yeah, she's like, if you ever like, well, and since then we've had conversations about that. She's like, if you ever feel like that again, like you better freaking tell me. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, if I ever get to that spot again, I will definitely be telling you like, hey, something is not right. And I think now, after everything that we've gone through together, I definitely feel comfortable that if something happened, I would tell her.
Yeah. I think it also, and I don't know personally, I don't know if this is how you felt or not, but, when you come from families that are like, we don't talk about emotions, you're in the military, you're in law enforcement, all of those different things where you're not, all of the previous generations always say you don't talk about it. You don't talk about it. You suck it up. You just keep going. And I think that that is starting to come out in, our generations of like, no, that really messes with your head when you don't
Mm,
talk about it because then you don't know how to tell someone, hey, I am going to carry out this plan because I don't know what else to do. And I think it's also hard when the people that are supposed to help you, your therapist, your psychologist, all those things, when they have such a long wait time, when you're like, I am circling the drain here, people like, I don't have 3 months. In 3 months, this is going to be a way different conversation.
yeah.
And so I think that, even you sharing this story right now is going to be so impactful for so many people because they're like, wow, I feel that, like I can empathize or relate to that.
Yep. And I saw a TikTok today, and I've been trying to do more TikToks. But I saw one of them today that kind of really stuck with me. And I was like, oh my God, like light bulb went off. Cause for so long, I would do that self isolation, where like if I was really like struggling with someone like or something, like I would shut everybody out. Like
Yeah.
I would just shut everybody out, do the best I could to not talk about it, isolate, do whatever. And that was, to my detriment also. And not kind of talking, just doing that self isolation.
Yep.
And that was a struggle that, I had and I still struggle today. I mean, if something bugs me, I'm like, God, I need to talk to my wife or at least let her know about what's going on or what I'm thinking. So the self-isolation was absolutely stupid and detrimental. And I say that now with hindsight being 2020. But yeah, I would definitely do a lot of self-isolation instead of talking to folks and letting them know what I was going through.
Yeah. One of my therapists told me that sometimes self-isolation feels the safest because in our past or in different situations, when we told someone how we were feeling or showed how we were feeling, we did not get what we needed in those moments.
Yeah, like you
And
feel a
so kind of
rejection.
exactly. And so you self-isolate. And she told me that I self-isolate because, in different moments where I said I needed help or I showed I needed help, I didn't get that in return. And so I'm, even with my husband now, I am the worst when it comes to if something's bothering me. No one's gonna know, but
Yes.
I'm trying. Like
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
I'm working on it, but it's hard because you're trying to, one, deal with the trauma. Two, you're trying to rewire your brain to allow yourself to feel those feelings and go through all of the trauma and try to process it. And then also, the human brain is so crazy because it's not, different situations that you're put in isn't something that it's used to, and so it's like I don't know how to file this or what I'm supposed to do with that. So it's a lot that you have to navigate, and then it's also terrifying because you're like, wow, that is like our worst case scenario. Is you always think about like, I want to come home, at the end of the shift you want to come home, and you're like, when it comes down to it, those situations are the hardest in law enforcement, in my opinion, or
Oh,
really in first response.
yes. Yeah.
Um,
No. First responders altogether. Like, yeah, we've got some. Yeah.
yeah. Um, let's see here. I have some other questions for you. Do you feel like your body has ever told your stories before your mouth could, like with shaking or the adrenaline, or you hear something and it triggers you right back into where you were at, or if you smell a certain smell that'll just remind you of different things?
So nothing. Sometimes specific with my two critical incidents. Like the location. The first location, I've kind of got to the point where, like, I drive by it kind of frequently. Not like on purpose. It's just it's in like a location that's there, and so like that was a struggle at first.
I'm
Kind of
sure.
seeing that area. The second one, I haven't even gone to,
Yeah.
just because I don't want to go back and experience that again. But there are definitely some things that like certain smells will take you back to certain things.
Yeah.
I've never, excuse me, had anything as far as like the shaking or like that adrenaline dump. But definitely sometimes certain smells and stuff will definitely, you're like, as soon as you smell that, you're like, and you're like, oh, that's death. Like
Yep.
you know that stuff because you've smelt it and you're like, oh, something's dead,
Yep.
and it, so like there are those things that it's kind of messed me up for the rest of my life because like I I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
So like those are, I think those are the only real couple things that I have. But yeah, some locations definitely, or some certain things, I definitely see how that bugs people and
Yeah.
messes with them. But yeah, I never really had any of the like the shakes. I've seen that happen, and you're like, holy crap! Like that person is overloaded.
Yes. Yeah. I used to get the shakes at the grocery store if I heard a child scream.
Oh, I can see
Instant
that.
shakes, like nausea. It was a whole thing. I
Yeah.
thankfully I've gotten better now, but how did your mind make sense of being both a protector and a survivor?
I think I'm still working on that, honestly.
I'm sure.
Initially, I don't know. I don't know that I. Well, I'm sure I struggled with it. I mean, as far as trying to figure out like how I did it, for the longest time I didn't leave the house like
Yeah.
after my stuff. Like if I left the house, it was like quick in and out, or like I could just pick up something and I never had to get out of the vehicle and interact with people. So for me, there was a lot of like self isolation too. I mean, I would stay home. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to see anybody, deal with anybody, talk to anybody. So that was one of the things that I struggled with. And then
I
I
am.
Oh, they're getting angry again.
I'm gonna mute myself, but you go.
Okay. So for me, like there was the self isolation, and then it took a while to get out of the like self isolation phase. There was, I mean, and that was working through therapy, and finally we got some medications to kind of
Yes.
help balance me out a little bit. And that medication journey was absolutely freaking terrible. Because like, hey, great, you don't want to kill yourself, but I'm spending 6 to 8 hours in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know,
Or you're a zombie and you can't make
yes, or
sentences.
you're a zombie and you can't do any of that stuff. So there was, a couple different med changes that we did till we finally got to kind of like a combination of where I felt good enough that I like would want to get out of the house and kind of interact with people. I still struggle with the whole deal of having to see the door and exits and people in there and everything else and scanning rooms when I go in. And there has been a couple times where my wife's like, well, I'm sitting with the back to the door. And I said, good. I said, if you sit with your back to the door, all of this shit is your responsibility. And she was
Yeah.
like, what? I was like, you have to pay attention to everything. If I'm going to be oblivious to this, you have to pay attention to everything.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's happened a few times. And there are times now where I will intentionally try to do that to relax. And it is absolutely hard to even get out of that still.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, those are like some of the struggles that I still struggle with.
and when you do that, where like your wife is kind of taking the lead on scanning and kind of looking at everything, I know that it would be hard for you to kind of let that guard down. Do you see changes in her after all of, after the incidents and even just interacting with different people, or when you guys do go out, have you seen a change in her from the first one to the second one to now? And now that you're retired as well.
Some of the changes, I don't know. My wife is a rock star. I definitely don't deserve her. But she is, I think she does a lot of things sometimes to protect me. Because I struggled with a lot of times even prior to this, like my filter is broken. So I would say some crazy off the wall stuff sometimes. And like I've tried to work on that and get better, especially now because my brain just works on a totally different wavelength
Yeah.
than what it did prior. But she will talk things through with me, to like instead of like I used to always say no to everything because when I was, even in it prior to my incidents, you come home from work, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to see anybody. And that really affected us for years, and we'll get into those questions later. But she knows how to read kind of like if I don't want to do anything or if I'm forcing myself to do something. So she will try to find things that like we can both enjoy
Yeah.
to get what she needs from our relationship. Like my wife likes to go on like pointless car rides, and for
Oh,
me that
yes.
works great. Like last week she's like she was kind of down in the dumps and I was like, hey, let's go for a car ride, let's go drive through the mountains. The colors are starting to change and everything
Yeah,
else.
let's
Let's go for a drive.
yeah.
And so we did that, got out of the truck a little bit, walked around through the mountains. And those are the kind of things that feed her soul, and making her happy is kind of my whole goal now. Because for the longest time, I know I didn't make her happy because of where I was. So part of that is learning for me to like step out of my shell. And like, thankfully, she's been very supportive of me doing that. And so I'm just trying to do things also that help her out.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it also speaks to like different soulmates or twin flames or all those different things, like when you go through some of the hardest moments that like normal everyday people will not ever go, usually will not go through an officer involved shooting as a husband and wife combo, you know.
Right.
And so I think that also being able to kind of rise from all of that, of like, you know, doing those hard things, going to therapy, talking about it, learning this new like emotionally intelligence and all that other stuff, like I think it also speaks to just how strong y'all's bond is to be able to be like, no, we kicked that ass and we are, you know, even stronger now.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that, like, I don't know. My wife and I don't. Have you ever seen Hotel Transylvania when they're like,
Yes.
we zinged?
Yeah.
Uh, it's kind of like that moment. Like, I met my wife. I was 16 and she was 14. In the moment I saw my wife, I knew that I was like, that's who I'm supposed to be with. I didn't even know her
Yeah.
name. I just knew that that was the girl that I was supposed to be with. And that was 1997, and we've been together since then. So, uh, 28 years later, like we've been through hell.
Yeah. And when you think about 28 years together, like y'all have seen each other through so many different seasons of your lives. And, you know, now that you're retired and she's still working, like, I know she was a dispatcher,
Yep,
right?
yep. She was a
Um,
dispatcher for our agency.
So, with her being a dispatcher, do you feel that she had a different outlook of officer involved shooting, even though it was you, you as her husband? Because as dispatchers, we're trained, you know, to deal with officer involved shootings, and you're supposed to remain, you're that calm in the chaos, you
Hmm.
know. Do you feel that she kind of held that calm in the chaos when when you came home to kind of let you debrief?
She was, she really just kind of let me be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know that it necessarily helped her. But I think she knew like the last thing I wanted to do was do a bunch of talking or anything else. So she just kind of let me be, to kind of help process it. And like she was there, because I struggle with sometimes, I mean, for being a fat kid, I struggle to eat. Like I am like, I can eat one big meal a day and I'm good for the whole day. And she's like, did
Yes.
you eat breakfast? Did you eat lunch? Did you eat dinner? And if I hadn't, you know, she'd bring me a sandwich or she would do something or, you know, hey, let's go out and go get dinner or, you know, let's order something in.
Yeah.
So she did a very good job of taking care of me. I can't say anything negative about that at all.
Oh yeah.
But she definitely, I think it was kind of like two pronged, because she did a lot of taking care of me, but I didn't understand until like even much later, like within the last year, like how I fell short of making sure that she was also taken care of in those incidents. Because I didn't think about her. I'll be real honest. I didn't. I was only thinking about myself because of all the shit that I was going through.
Yeah.
And since then, I've definitely, you know, tried to do stuff to make sure that she's taken care of. I mean, because I've got all the time in the world on my hands now.
Yeah.
So I know, like, if she has a bad day, like, I will intentionally do things for her, you know, like, hey, do you want a shower? Or, you know, whatever. Do you want one of your little, like, aromatherapy fizzy deals in the shower?
Yeah.
Like, what do
Yeah.
you need? And, like, for my wife, like, she is like small tasks are kind of like one of her love language. So like before she comes home, I make sure like the house is clean, dishes are done, kitchen, you know, the counter's cleaned up.
Yeah.
Cause I'm kind of a slob when it comes to it. I just like put everything on the counter and, you know, that irritates the living shit out of her.
Yes.
So, you know, before she comes home, I'm like, I've got to have the dishes done because she doesn't like sinks in or dishes in the sink.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had it happen, but you know, she's kind of, she has her routine. And
Yes.
so I make sure that, you know, all that stuff's done. So that way when she comes home, like she doesn't have to stress about, well, now I have to clean the house,
Yeah.
or, you know, any of that other stuff. So like, I've always done laundry,
Mhm.
you know, for us. So like, I make sure, she's got clean clothes for work because mama's got to make me that money now.
Yes.
But I'll make sure that, she's got clean clothes. I make sure that, most of the times I make sure that dinner's ready unless I space out and I'm like, shit, it's 5 o'clock and I need to start dinner.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do everything now to make sure that when she comes home, she's not stressed. And that has helped us out tremendously because when she comes home, all she has to worry about, like she's going back to school for her master's now.
Oh, wow.
So I make sure, like the house is clean. So, whatever she's got to do, if she's got to do homework, tonight or something, like she can do that and not have to stress about anything else.
Um, if there is an officer that is watching this and they are ever involved in an officer involved shooting, whether it is them or their spouse, what is something that some advice that you would give them as far as how to heal from it, how to go through it? If they do have a significant other, how to help them through it, all of the above.
Don't wait to talk to somebody until you get to that point of you're like, damn, I should probably talk to somebody. Don't wait. I mean, honestly, do the workman's comp claim. Put in to talk to a therapist like immediately, because it will affect you in ways that you have no idea of. It'll affect your marriage. Like you'll start getting, short and snippy and verbally aggressive sometimes. Immediately talk to somebody, and then also make sure that your spouse gets that same support, or like a couples therapy. If there's something that like you're both struggling with, like immediately talk to somebody. Don't wait to do it. That would be like my honest advice is talk to somebody immediately. Like do the workman's comp claim, talk to somebody and keep talking to them until like you don't feel stressed or overwhelmed or any of that stuff.
Absolutely. Um, well, let's see. How have your coping mechanisms changed over the years, and especially from like your very first day on the job to where you're at right now?
Well, being a first responder, we have the absolute worst sixth sense of humor ever.
Yes.
So like that dark humor that we have was an absolute great coping mechanism.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that, like we used to do, especially when I worked, overnights. We joked before we were getting ready in the locker room, excuse me. And then, we joked the same thing the next morning about like, Jesus, we wouldn't have gone out, all the, the crazy stuff we had dealt with, you joke about the terrible jokes. That kind of helped for a while until you get into some of the serious stuff. And especially when you have those critical incidents, there's really no humor that's going to get you through that. Like, cause that's serious. Like you're like, holy shit, like, man, I could face jail time. Depending on this, you could get sued, your life's over. And like then it's a totally different set of circumstances. Like there is no humor, it's all seriousness. And that, so like, I didn't realize like I probably should have been talking to somebody for years. And I didn't, and you just kind of compartmentalize and you stack it upon stack inside your
Yeah.
compartmentalization. And you never really address it because like a buddy of mine and I were talking the one day going golfing again. And he's like, he goes, I mean, yeah, you have the big things that really get you, but being a first responder it's kind of like death of a thousand cuts. Because you have those constant domestic violence calls, you have the family disturbance calls, all of those things, child abuse calls, all of those things weigh on you. But we don't ever really take the time to discuss it, get past it, because what we do is everything that we do is and see is the worst possible things that can happen to a human being.
Yep.
And we're like the mainstream media and like all these other folks that haven't been a first responder are like, well, you signed up for it. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. It's
just,
like you knew what you were getting yourself into.
yes, you know what you were getting yourself into. And I
Yeah.
was like, no, I signed up to help people,
Yeah.
and take bad people to jail. I didn't sign up to, experience some of the most god awful things ever.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, like having that ability to go in and talk to somebody, and I'm not knocking EAP. There's a time and a place for them, but 5 EAP sessions isn't gonna do anything for you. I mean,
No.
by 5 sessions, you might know if you can honestly trust that therapist to open up, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Or you've had like some of those where you talk to a therapist and you start telling them like what you've actually experienced, and you watch their eyes just get ginormous, and they're like, wow. And you're like,
Yeah.
you are not the fucking therapist for me.
Yeah.
Because like if I am shocking you right now, like we haven't even opened my
Yeah.
compartmentalization box yet.
Yeah, you're like that was the least traumatic thing that I've dealt with today. And
Yes.
your eyes are massive. Yeah, that's not going to work out.
And I think that's one of the other things that people don't understand is most folks look at, in a lifetime, the average human being is going to experience 3 to 5 traumatic events in their lifetime, and that may be, like a friend dies in a car crash, where parents die unexpectedly, and here it is. I'm like in like halfway through my 10-hour shift and I've had 4 traumatic events already,
Yeah.
like people just don't get it.
Yeah, and it's like you also people don't understand that like law, fire, EMS, they're all also getting fought at the same time as dealing with X, Y, or Z. And we used to always say like in dispatch, just because it may not be an emergency in my eyes, it is in their eyes and the
Yep.
caller's eyes. But sometimes when you're like, I just did CPR for 35 minutes because this call was out in the middle of BFE, and then I have Linda calling me because someone's dog is barking. Like,
Yes.
I'm sorry that I have an attitude with you, but like, this is not an emergency, Linda.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes. And
but
yeah.
I
Oh.
think that it's so hard because people are like, "Oh, well, tell me like your worst call," and it's like if I tell you my worst call, or if you tell me your very worst call that you've ever gone on, you are gonna have nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, people don't understand that, and then they see like the 911 on TV, or they see like cops or whatever, and they're like, "I want to be a cop." It's like you don't see the smells, you don't see the
Mm-hmm.
houses where there's no floor because it's all rotting out.
Yep.
Like
Oh.
there's so much that I don't think people understand goes into, first response and everything.
Yeah, they don't I don't know. Yeah, people don't want to I think it's almost like a blissful ignorance of
Yes.
what we actually go through.
Yeah. And then when you start they're like, "Well, you should have talked to someone before." And it's like when you talk, but you do have to trust whoever you're talking to,
Mhm.
because sometimes those therapists are like, that's just not going to go well. Um, let's see. What is your outlet now? I know you've talked a lot about golf.
So yeah, my it's normally my buddy Marty and we normally go golfing. At least, well, right now his back's kind of sore because he did something stupid to his back. But normally, at least we would try to go 2 to 3 times a month. And that's, because he's still actively working, and depending on how his shift schedule was and craziness that he had, we would do golfing. I used to do a lot of woodworking. I loved woodworking. I've got pretty much like a wood shop in my garage, and
That's
like
amazing.
my whole goal, I eventually want to build my own grandfather clock.
Oh, wow.
But I lost a lot of passion and drive, like with this mental health struggle. And the only thing I've done here lately, like as far as building or doing anything, they opened a new fire station here in Pueblo, and the dispatch got part of or they got one of the, like they do like it's like less than 48-inch sections of like what is it, it's not like 2-inch or 2.5-inch hose, and it's,
Oh
got like the
yeah,
the commemoration date of when the station was open and everything else. And my wife asked me if I would build a little display case for it.
oh,
And so I started doing that. Like, that's like the only thing I've, excuse me, honestly done, like woodworking wise, in the last couple years. Because I lost a lot of drive for all the hobbies. And so now, like, trying to work on doing things again. It's just kind of like sometimes breaking that routine of like
yeah.
your brain feeling one way and doing another. But yeah, that's a struggle. But I love woodworking. I love going golfing. And so I try to do those things. And then now with trying to do this, I try to at least do a TikTok video at least once or twice a day. Excuse me. And then, I mean, just try to get myself out there on, trying to raise awareness for mental health and first responders.
Absolutely. And it can also be hard because when you're interviewing people, you can kind of sometimes get some of that vicarious trauma where you're putting yourself in their situation too, and you're like, well,
Yeah.
but I think it's amazing that you're doing this. This is a question we can bypass if you want. How did the department handle you after the investigations?
And we're going to get into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, I mean, like after the first one, when I kind of struggled a little bit and then got right back into it, everything was kind of okay. The second one, hell no. It was, I knew, like I was really struggling and going through the whole mental health process and everything else. It couldn't have been any more lonelier than what it was. And I mean, there are two people at the department that actually like reached out and I talked to all the time. The very first day when I went out on my second one, one of the coworkers or one of the guys I worked with, texted me and asked if I was on injury leave, and I didn't respond because I'm not a fan of this dude or anything else, and I ignored it. Well, he tracked down my wife at her job in the city and
Oh,
asked her to talk to me to see if I would be willing to give up my shift so he could be on day shift to spend more time with his family. And I was like, screw you, dude. I'm not doing,
yeah.
no. So
Wow.
I never responded to that. And then a week after, I had another coworker reach out and be like, hey, do you want to give up your day shift so, my girlfriend and I could have the same vacation time off together? And I was like, sorry, buddy, not going to happen.
No.
Yeah. And then, I mean, like my sergeant checked in a few times, kind of initially and then faded off. I never heard from my captain. So we don't have captains at the Pueblo Police Department. You have, your patrol officers and corporals, which is a seniority position, which I was a corporal. And then you test for sergeant. And then from sergeants, we jump straight to captains. And then you have deputy chief and chief.
Okay.
I never heard, well, so my captain that I initially, had started with, that told me I was basically kind of like Robin Williams, heard from him a few times, but then he retired and moved to Arizona. And
Wow.
then when he left, I never heard from my new captain for the entire time I was off. I never heard from my deputy chief that was in charge of the patrol section. I heard from the chief occasionally, but that was more of, hey, what's the update on your injury leave? And when you get your, workman's comp note, just send it to me. And then we got to the point in the process where, they like, hey, we are recommending you be medically retired from law enforcement. And as soon as I told the chief that, like, nothing. Never heard from him. So I was pretty much on my own. I mean, there were two dudes that I heard from in the department, but they were part of my core four that kind of helped me get through this. And so I basically had nobody. I think it's like a culture deal. We kind of like disown those that aren't in it. And
Yeah.
it's almost kind of like my buddy and I were talking about it too. It's like the military. Like the day you're no longer actively, and I wasn't even like, I was inactive. I'm, like on the injured reserve.
Yeah.
But you're basically, you're dead to them.
Yep.
The person that I saved their life, never really heard anything from that officer from that second one, until 9 months after the fact when we got our clearance letter in July of 2024. Hey, thanks for saving my ass, and that was it.
Wow.
So there was that happened. And I never really had any support, and that is really what bugged me because, for my entire career down there,
Yeah.
and everything you hear is we're a family, we're a family. If you need anything, we're a family. Reach out. Well, fucking
Yeah.
family didn't mean shit,
Yep.
because I didn't hear from anybody. And it's like, I at one time thought that I would take a bullet for you guys,
Yeah.
and now like I'm in a mental health struggle, and you won't even like reach out to me.
Yeah.
So that was a struggle, and then we get to the point where I end up getting medically retired, and my last day there was, like before then, I go in to get my checkout list because I want to make sure, I got all my gear so I can clean out my locker, turn everything in. And I walk up to we've got 3 floors in our agency. You got the first floor, which is like, the main lobby, community room, property and evidence, and elevators and CSI to get up to the second floor, which is, where all the patrol section, traffic, gym, our academy. Third section is like, the admin investigations and stuff. And I go up to the third floor. I walk in to the chief's office, and one of the deputy chiefs comes out, and he looks at me and he's like, "Hey Burns, how's your wife doing?" And I was like, "I haven't been here in 9 fucking months, and the first question you have is how my wife is." And he's like,
Yeah.
"Well, we knew how you were." And I said, "Really? Because you haven't reached out any time, so how the hell would you know how I'm doing?" And that pissed me
Yeah.
off like the rest of the time I was at the department, just to clean up my stuff and turn everything in. And then, oh my God, what was it? I don't know. 2 weeks later, I showed up, got my cool little retirement plaque from the agency, but the chief didn't give it to me. I got it from a secretary.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
couldn't even come out of the office, shake my hand, "Hey, sorry we fucked you up," or anything else like that.
Or
Uh,
just show any sort of support.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, there was like no real sign of support or anything. Uh, and I just like, it really, really bothered me.
right.
And then I got a letter in the mail from the department saying, "Hey, been, selected by a committee of your peers to receive an award." And this was like, I don't know, June of 25 or something. Well, in June for this award ceremony. And I hadn't heard anything from anybody, and I've, been down because, basically the people I thought
Yeah.
were my family weren't there. And originally, my wife's like, "Well, do you want to go?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, we're going to go, because fuck them. That's, I'm going to show them I'm still here." And
Yeah.
then, I kind of started, like, I stewed on it. I was super angry about the department and basically how they shit on me, and like left me out to dry.
And
And
rightfully so.
yeah, and so my wife's like, "We should really think about this. Like, you should really put some time and effort into this." And I've always been the type that, like, the bridges that I burn today will light the path for tomorrow.
Yes.
And God bless my wife for like dealing with me, because I will burn shit to the ground. And
Yep.
then I'm like, "Well, that sucked. I kind of did that." And my wife's like, "Well, we kind of did a bad thing. Now you have to rebuild all of this stuff that you burnt to the ground."
Yeah.
So, I listening to her, I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go to this award ceremony. And she was like, well, why are you not wanting to go? And I said, well, if they didn't want to see me when I really needed them, why should I show up to an award ceremony where they're going to give me some award for something I did? And she's like, are you sure about that? And I said, yeah, I'm really sure about that. And like something clicked in my brain at that time. And I got on Facebook one day, and all the cops that I had worked with, like, I deleted everybody off of Facebook. Yeah. And then I went through my phone and I deleted them out of my phone. And I told my wife when she came home, I was like, I deleted everybody off of Facebook, all the coworkers, all the stuff in my phone, except for there was a couple of them that I left just because, you know, like I felt like I would still want to talk to them, or they had, you know, reached out a little bit. But other than that, I deleted everybody. Mm-hmm. And I was like, she's like, well, why did you do that? And I was like, because I'm going to give them the grace that they never showed me. I'm just, if you're not, like, I don't think, it was kind of, I think, one of those things where it clicked for me. Like, you get into your 40s and you just want peace.
Yes. Yes.
And if you are not going to offer peace, support, or any qualitative, like, things in my life, I don't want you in it. And so yes. I just went through and I deleted everybody. I've had a few of them kind of reach out through the broken responder, like email, the Facebook. I've had a couple of them reach out and like, hey, you know, I really like what you're doing. You know, it's about time somebody, you know, starts talking about how it really is. And so for me, it was, you know, I'm at a point of peace now where if you don't bring anything qualitative to my life or peace or happiness, like, I don't want you in it.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that is such a strong sentiment, especially when it's like first responders always have this perception that it is a family, and that, you know, when one of us hurts, all of us hurts. Like, we ride at dawn for all of us, but you don't realize that only it only means that when everything's good.
Yeah.
When shit hits the fan, a lot of times, a lot of them are not going to be there anymore. And I think that's the shitty part of it.
And I've got another example of that.
Yes.
So I am officially retired. And then like 2 weeks after I retire, I think, we have one of the craziest incidents we've ever had in Pueblo. And 3 of our officers were shot in one night.
Oh my gosh.
And one of them happened to be one of my friends that I still talk to, is one of my Core 4. He got shot that night. He's in the ICU at the hospital, you know, because he got shot in the leg and the shoulder. And I went up to visit him. And, you know, I'm retired for 2 weeks. Well, I get there and the officer that I saved is there. And they're doing rotations, you know, watching him, hanging out with him, doing whatever they can for family. And the deputy chief of the patrol section is there. You know, for my entire career growing up as a baby cop, you know, we're a family, we're a family, we're a family. And as soon as this dude gets to administrators, you know, it's more of a, excuse me, we're not a family, but we're a team, because sometimes we need to get rid of teammates. You know, that mentality, which is kind of, you know, an oxymoron in its own. So I'm sitting up there and I'm talking to the officers. There's one officer that's there and another officer that's sitting on the side of me, and I'm between them. Well, this deputy chief walks up and he acknowledges the officer to my left, skips me, and goes to the other officer and acknowledges her and gives her a hug. Doesn't say anything to me at all, right? Like, I'm not even there.
Yeah.
Well, then my buddy's wife comes in, you know, 'cause she was running errands, doing whatever else she had to do. I think she went to go get something to eat. And they had brought up like a gift bag or whatever. And the deputy chief hugs my buddy's wife and says, we're a family. If you guys need anything, don't hesitate. And I was like, wow, this dirty fucking just like, it took everything in my being to keep my mouth shut.
Oh, sure.
Cause
Sure.
I was like, I am not ruining this moment, but I am like fuming. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
we're a fucking family now, are we? Really?
Yeah.
Please do tell. Yeah.
That
So
would have made me so. I can't imagine. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, no, no. So that's okay. So anyway, as he even when he leaves, he doesn't acknowledge me as they're leaving, right?
Yeah.
So as I'm sitting beside the officer to my left, he's like, I don't know, 2 years from retirement. I look at him and I was like, hey, just so you know, when you retire from this place, you're fucking dead to this organization. And he looks at me and his eyes get all big. And I was like, he's like, what do you mean? I was like, did you see I didn't get acknowledged? Never got a handshake, hello, hug, nothing like that. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, that's what you get when you're gone.
Yeah.
And he was like, whoa. And I was like, well, guess what? That's what happens. So that was like my second kind of like, I don't know, big FU moment that I kind of felt.
Yeah.
And so yeah, since then, like I have zero to do with any of those guys.
And it's so sad because when you think about, especially law enforcement, like y'all are supposed to know that your partner like is going to have your back, like, and I think that that's just it's frustrating because that is what happens in the majority of first response and the cattiness,
Oh yeah. It's like
especially
a high
with
school
that. Yeah,
high school
yeah,
all over again. There's cliques and everything else and in crowds and out crowds.
yep. Or if you have someone that's like, oh, well, I'm not going to take that call because I know XYZ. And it's like, no, we all should be taking the shitty calls. We all should be doing this. Like, we're all here,
Yep.
to do one job. And at the very the smallest part of all of the, or not the smallest part, but first response is to protect the communities and the visitors of the communities that you serve. And it's like, how can you have that much drama when we're supposed to be protecting other people
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
being there to help other people? Um, so let's see here. I'm going to go into this one.
Okay.
What do you think that current first responders get wrong when they're dealing with trauma?
Oh, there's a lot.
Yeah.
God, where do we start? So first off, and I did a TikTok about this the other day. We have some of the best minds in like leadership in all the first responder communities. We have some of the best minds in psychology, psychiatry, therapy, peer support. And for some odd reason, we can recognize like trauma and issues in everybody else, but we freaking suck when it comes to ourselves. Like we absolutely are just garbage at it. And
Yeah.
then the thing that kills me is you have somebody that commits suicide and, everybody's like left perplexed. Like, I never saw it coming. And I'm like, really? What do you mean you didn't see it coming? And I think like it's a multifaceted issue. One, like we suck at recognizing it in ourselves. Two,
Yes.
when we do recognize it, like it's almost like a mini bully session. Cause you like bully that person or you make him feel like shit cause you're like, oh, you're a fucking bitch cause you're gonna
Yeah.
let that bother you. Like
Yep.
that wasn't even traumatic. Why would that bother you?
And no one else is bothered
Yeah,
by
no
it,
one
so
else
why are
is
you?
yeah, exactly. So like we kind of bully folks into thinking that the trauma that they're experiencing isn't that, or we've had that deal the longest time of you just suck it up and you go on, or you do seek mental health help and then your crew looks at you like a freaking liability.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so like there's so many different ways that we get it wrong. And like here's what I honestly believe, and I saw it on a podcast too. There should be, and this is like my whole goal with doing this, we need to have first responder friendly therapists in every big agency, and like smaller agencies need to be able to share because you may not have traumatic events all the time, maybe like a bigger agency does. And those critical debriefs come in at great times, but those are only after critical incidents. So what I want to see is I want to see first responder friendly therapists and everything. So if you get through, like, let's say you have a child abuse and all of a sudden, maybe it triggers something about your own childhood trauma of, this is really starting to bug me. Well, instead of having to wait, 2 weeks, 2 months, or whatever to see a therapist, hey, call the therapist. When can we set up a time, either today or tomorrow to come in, sit down for an hour, talk to that therapist, maybe do a follow-up appointment with that therapist, but they need to be in-house and readily available to us just to deal with us. Because if we're not right, the stuff we do on the street's not right.
Absolutely.
And I think, honestly, if we have in-house therapists, there's going to be a lot of things that you see shift in the first responder community. I think you're going to have a lot less complaints because a lot of the times when those things happen, it's, guys are experiencing trauma, guys and gals, excuse me, but like the first responders are experiencing their own trauma. They're dealing with, their own issues. And if we're not there to talk about the trauma that they see and work them through that, you're going to continue to see like these major national events where the news is like, oh, the cops pulled this guy out by his hair, beat the living snot out of him. What could we have done different? Well, what was that cop dealing with prior to that? Or the other calls that they had that made them get that angry? Or do something that stupid?
And what number shift are they on? Is this 7 of 12 and they're on 12s to 18s?
Right. And I think that's the other thing. We don't look at the schedules that these guys work. I mean, right now, and we'll get into the dispatch stuff. My wife, God bless her soul, there were some times when they had manning issues and everything else. Like my wife would go in for an 8-hour shift and then she'd be there for 16 hours straight because she'd get forced into a double, or, half a shift. She's working, there's never an 8-hour shift. It was 12 or 16 hours. It was very rare that my wife actually worked an 8-hour shift. And then for us working 10-hour shifts, the max they could work us, they would work us 15 hours, which was basically half a shift. But especially in our area, like with Pueblo, working 10 hours in Pueblo was enough for one day.
Yeah.
But working 15 hours, trying to help the overlap because you have a shift shortage or something like that. I mean, these are things that we don't look at. And I think you can even look at some of the folks with disciplinary issues. A lot of those things they're angry because of the things that they've gone through, that they've experienced and everything else. And I honestly believe that if we have first responder friendly therapists, trauma therapists in our agencies across the nation, you will see far less issues with the police and first responders completely. I mean, it's always the police that give it, that something happens to. But I mean, you look at some of the firefighters that have had issues, the EMTs, the dispatchers. I think if we start looking at, okay, this person's starting to have disciplinary issues, what's the root cause of this? Is there, did they experience something? Well, let's start nipping that in the butt right now.
Yeah.
And we can solve a lot of these issues and prevent further issues.
Absolutely.
So, that's my whole goal with this is I want to see first responder friendly trauma therapists readily available to us at all times and not have to wait forever.
Absolutely. And I think it would also be very important that the therapists are also, there's some sort of protection for anyone that goes, the responders, because there's always that fear of are they going to, is my agency going to see me as a liability if I start to talk about this or,
right.
X, Y, Z. And so I think I hope that'll happen.
I think if you were to do something like that, there would have to be some type of HIPAA protection in there. But I think the only time that you would break that is with the laws that we have on the books, and that's the, duty to report, hey, this officer's homicidal, well,
Yeah.
then we should probably take some stuff away and get them some help until they feel
Yes.
better. I mean, that would probably be the only thing, the duty to warn or duty to report. But everything else, hell no, that's a secret because
Yeah.
that is between you and the therapist. And, other than that, or maybe the chief or the administration says, hey, you are running up on some issues here. You need to start going to therapy, and maybe mandate that they go to therapy. And I don't know that necessarily mandating therapy would work because, let's face it, first responders are just like anybody else. If you're going to make me do it, you're an asshole and I hate you.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's where, you get these first responder friendly therapists in there, but they become a part of the agency also.
Yeah.
That you see them every day. They're not just hiding out in a corner. The therapist is, maybe doesn't have anybody and they're walking through the station, BSing with everybody, checking on them, things that a therapist would be able to identify.
Yes.
That's what they're doing. I mean, that's what we need to pay those folks for, and that's what they need to be there for. And I know people are going to be like, well, that's another expense. Yeah, but how much is this expense going to cost you compared to a lawsuit or
Yes.
anything else that we could go through? Sure.
Or the responders killing themselves. Or
Yes, exactly.
the dispatcher that just made the news because she called a lady and said, "You've called this number X amount of times." And, I was like, I know
Yes.
she's either just quit or she's retiring. There's no other.
Yes.
But
Yes. But that's
but
the whole goal.
yes, I think that would be amazing. Let's see. Did you lose? We've kind of already talked about this, losing friends and family because of how, that because of what happened and them just deciding that they weren't going to respond to you anymore, kind of a thing. Or I think it was mostly with your the friends, quote unquote, that you thought with the department and everything. Did anyone close to you ever say something that stuck, either good or bad?
So my buddy Marty is like my Jiminy Cricket. He's kind of like my little conscience. And that's going back to a Pinocchio reference for those
Yes.
folks that aren't old enough to know that. He is kind of the, I at first, when I was really mad, I'm like, I'm not mad about this, and he's like, well, you kind of fucking sound mad, and I'm like, I'm not mad, and he's like, well, you kind of do, dumbass. Like, listen to you. So like having him around and at least, being able to talk to, and that was one of the other things was, like talking to, but, anything like guys do, like we don't really like to open up or anything else. And kind of like once I finally started telling him, and he saw this stuff with the podcast and he's like, why didn't you tell me like you were going through that? And I was like, dude, it's so hard to, like really explain to folks how you really feel. So like having him being able to talk through, because he's kind of like my wife, because my wife is very goal and task oriented. And she looks at different complexities of problems that I would never look at. And Marty's the same way. He's very methodical, whereas I'm kind of like Mach 3 with my hair on fire. Let's just do it live and see what happens, and we'll work the problem from there.
Yep.
So having him was a godsend because he was like that little conscience that I never knew that I needed. And he would talk me through things. Logan is also very supportive, in the way that he does things, but he would also do things like supportive, but make me laugh. And Wags was the same way. He was also supportive and made me laugh. And my buddy Billy, God rest his soul, hopefully I don't cry, passed away in March of this year, from cancer.
Oh, gosh.
But like having him, and that's another part about, we can talk about like once we get to my wife, but the stuff with Billy like really bugged me. Like because he was on active duty with cancer and they treated him like crap. But like him going through his cancer battle and me going out there to like, kind of be with him and help him through his process, like it kind of helped me forget all of my stuff that I was going through because helping him gave me something else to focus on. And that was, trying to get my friend to feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Dude was definitely my soul brother.
Yes. All right. Well, we are to your wife. So your wife
Oh,
was not just your partner at home. She was also on the radio. And as a former dispatcher with my husband being in the EMS, I know that I used to mess with him all the time on the radio.
oh, yes.
So how was that dynamic between you two?
Uh, my wife was an asshole to me on the radio. Like she
I
would,
feel like it's our duty.
yeah, like, and
Just,
I would be like, hey, why did you dick me over with that last minute call? Like, you're like, are you going to be home for dinner? Motherfucker, you just gave me a call where I'm 2 hours late because I'm on this shit. Like, when am I coming home? You put me on this fucking mess. There was,
19 other people that you could have
yes.
said. You
Oh,
said me.
yeah, yeah. There was like 20 other people free, and all of a sudden my number gets called. And then everybody's like, "Ooh, your wife hates you," and then my wife's like, "I didn't want to make it seem like I was trying to, she's like, it's easier for me to kind of do that to you because, I talk to you at home and can
Yeah.
explain things compared to, if I send somebody else instead of you, then, they complain and gripe and moan and now I just have to hear you bitch instead of everybody else."
Yeah.
So there was that frustration. And it got to the point where I was kind of a shit magnet. Like I would find crazy stuff to get into. I would get into crazy calls. And so it got to the point where, I mean, we have two different channels for our town. You have a north side of town and a south side of town. And I was always on the north side of town. So my wife would intentionally either try to dispatch on either the south side of town or she would take our third channel, which was our clearance channel. So she would either take the clearance channel for running, wants and warrants and plates. She would take that channel, or she would take, the fire dispatch channel and dispatch fire. Just because it created far less issues at home later on. So we worked that, for quite a while, and it worked great because I didn't get mad at my wife as much because I'm like, well, why did you screw me over? When now,
Yeah.
she's not on my channel and has nothing to do with it.
Yes.
So there was some frustration initially, but I was also completely oblivious to the trauma that she was going through upstairs in our dispatch center. I mean, it was always about me, and it wasn't until, I started going through my stuff that I'm like, oh my God, like I'm a complete jackass, and I was totally like I didn't give her the the support that she needed or deserved. I was just like, you answer a phone. What do you do? And then one night we sat down and talked about it. And I was like, holy shit, I'm an idiot. Like, you went through a lot, and I am so sorry that I wasn't ever as supportive of you as I should have been. And I think we get a lot of things wrong when we talk about dispatchers.
Yeah.
And I will say that not only because I love my wife, but I've seen it because we do that to dispatchers. I mean, and nobody understands, and I try to explain this to new cops and even some of the old guys, is a dispatcher gets a phone call. They can only go off of the information that they have received from that caller based on that caller's perception. And then you have cops that start asking all of these 50 freaking million questions, and I'm like, you're the police, dumbass. Go fucking solve it yourself. You know, like, you have the basics of what you're there for, but you know that by the time you get to the scene, like, it's not what that person said it was, because everybody sees things from different angles. So what may look like a fight is maybe just a disagreement or something else, but you're the cop. You get paid to go investigate it. Just freaking go. I mean, if the dispatcher has some information that is vital to you, they will pass it on to you.
Yes.
And so there's, you know, like, once I started to realize, like, kind of just some of the stupid stuff that guys would ask on the radio, I'm like, go to the call. Just shut your fucking mouth and go to the call. It's not that hard. So, and yeah, I'm sorry, but
no, it's fine. Yes,
but there's that frustration. I mean, like, guys ask the question, like, well, what color of underwear are they wearing? And it's like,
yes,
why?
I didn't ask
why?
because I didn't think that was relevant.
Yes, exactly. Like, the dispatchers go through so initially when my wife started, like, it was almost a year-long training process for dispatch. I mean, because, you know, you work your regular radio, you know, have to do all these clearances, CAD, like, the amount of typing and how fast my wife types to be able to do all that stuff, I'm like, I can't do that. I mean, I'm like, still like, I hunt and peck. And, you know, when I type, and I can hunt and peck pretty fast, but there's no way I can, like, do the shortcuts to get to the other screens and drop in CAD notes and doing all the other stuff that they do. No, I cannot do that. And I think that's the shortfall of, we don't do enough to let folks know what dispatch goes through.
Absolutely.
And, you know, there's those things where, you know, some of the dispatchers have heard folks, you know, take their last breath on the phone, or take their life over the phone. You know, hey, I want you to know where, you know, my body is, so, you know, my family doesn't find me this way. I mean, there's shit that dispatchers hear that's just as bad as cops, and all they can do is picture it in their mind. They don't get to see it like we do. And then the bad thing is once that dispatcher is done with that call, that's it. Like, they rarely get closure, and they're on to the next thing of a shit show. And so, like, one of the things I started to try to do was, you know, like, if something was crazy or anything else, I would, you know, call upstairs to dispatch to talk to that dispatcher and be like, you won't believe what happened. Like, this, and this. And I think that helped a little bit, because it helps get them that closure, because they're left, you know, oh man, I wonder, like, what happened on this. It takes like 2 minutes to call upstairs and talk to that dispatcher and be like, hey, you won't believe this, or thanks for this help, or any of that other stuff. And I had a deal one time. I found a plate, you know, running through town. And I don't know, I still have the picture of the plate in my phone and the plate number. I don't know if it still comes back to this dude, but this dude's name was Dick Sniff. I shit you not. Valid Colorado registration, and this dude's name was Dick Sniff.
Imagine airing that. I would have been cackling.
Yes. So the day that I ran that plate, I was like, there is no motherfucking way this is a valid plate. So I got on the radio, and I was like, so the way that we do it, it's, you know, we just, you know, we would just call COM. It was how we call our dispatch. I wouldn't say my number or anything else. I just key up. Actually, no, I would. It was, you know, it'd be like, hey, you know, I'm, for the longest time, my number was 112. I'm like, 112, can you clear a plate for me? And dispatch comes back, and they're like, whatever. And I give them this Colorado plate, and you hear dispatch clear, you like click up, and they're like, the plate comes back to, and like, you hear the pause, and then you start to hear the giggle, and you're like, yeah, give me back that full plate right now.
You tell me the RO.
Yes. So, I mean, like, I would try to have fun with it. There was one time one of the dispatchers mispronounced a road that we have here in Pueblo, and it's like Bannockburn, and it came out Bangkok, and I was like, Roger, en route to Thailand. And, you know, like, I mean, funny things that, like, you do on the radio just to kind of, like, have fun sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. I mean, stuff like that happens, but dispatchers, God bless them, like, they don't get enough credit. And I'm happy that, Colorado, was it last year or 2 years ago, finally recognized dispatchers as first
Yes,
responders.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Good job, Colorado.
Yeah, finally.
Finally.
And there's other states that still haven't done it, and they need to get on board.
Yes.
But yeah, dispatch doesn't get the credit that it deserves. And so for me, finally being able to understand what they go through, it kind of changed my outlook and personality on dispatch a lot. And yeah, not enough credit.
Yeah, we have a road called Mariana Way, and I can't tell you how many times I paged it out as Marijuana Way. And as soon as I do it, I try to like correct myself, and then I just made it worse, and it was
Yep,
just
just let it go. Because the
yeah,
guys,
yeah,
the people on the street know what you're talking about.
exactly, yeah.
They don't even question it. They're just like, okay, we're on our way.
Yeah, we're on our way. And I also paged out diabetes instead of diabetes. And EMS came back and they're like, "Can you repeat that?" And I repeated it, and they're still laughing. And I was like, "I have no idea what y'all like." I thought that's how you said diabetes.
Right.
And then they started sending me like Walter Brennan texts, and I'm like, "I don't understand what y'all are talking about." But
Yes.
yeah. Do you think that your career and the shootings changed your wife?
Uh-oh. I think I lost
Are
you.
you there? I think we both froze. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh. Hold on. God bless it.